Oh man,
Yeah, I don't.
if things start narrowing down, I actually get really antsy. Like I'm in that sort of situation right now.
I don't know if I really have any values or principles yet. I don't think I've gotten to that point in my life.
What about Kant's what is?
Then what do?
You just do what you do. Someone's like, "Hey, do you want chocolate or do you want soda?" And you don't have to like judge it against some value system. It's just like, "Oh, I want chocolate right now."
Yeah, but that's not a big thing.
No, but it can be. Like I have a friend who's
How do
an
you know what you want?
INFJ.
It's like I don't know what I want. I actually want steak.
Well, no, I know what I know that I want doesn't matter. Like I have a friend who's an INFJ and she got pregnant and she found out and she was like, "All right, so I'm gonna get an abortion." And she called the Planned Parenthood and they didn't pick up like 16 times and she's like, "All right, I guess I'm not getting an abortion."
No.
Yeah, I mean she's good. She's having a kid pretty soon.
Honestly, I'm gonna disagree with myself and say that yeah, deciding what chocolate or a Coke or whatever, like, because I like eating yummy foods, but at the same time, I will restrict myself in the efforts of having more energy and like freedom to basically do what I want, do other things that I want more.
I used to do that, and then I found it was
like,
ruining my life.
Things, and that's a whole nother kind of thing. And that one is kind of floating. Like, I want to be doing this. That doesn't have an objective or a particular measurement. But I guess if it violates whatever I consider my more objective, arrived at principles, then I'll reconsider, maybe.
Sometimes someone asks you, do you want like tea or coffee? And you honestly don't have an answer. Don't know what you want.
I always have an answer for that one, but okay.
But I feel like we don't know what we want for different reasons. Like we have different thought processes for why we don't know what we don't want. Oh, that was hard.
Yeah, in this sense, you can't deprive yourself. Like absolute deprivation is the worst idea. Like this is something I figured out when I was really little, and I had this philosophy when I was small. I was like, you should pick your vices, and not let them pick you. And vice versa. Like you can't deprive yourself, but you can make choices.
Who is this person?
Zach Ace.
Dude,
he's a guy.
Shirt. Nice.
There are 3 green shirts.
Yeah.
Wait,
I woke up this morning and
Zach?
thought it was St. Patty's Day.
And they are all NTPs.
Also Zach?
Unfortunately, Ace is not a Zach.
He's getting a green shirt. He's got to do it.
Oh, no. That would be amazing.
Green shirt, green shirt, green shirt, green shirt.
Oh, they don't have any green shirt.
We're never going to know.
Ridiculous, man.
It's going to be a mystery forever. I feel like I popped out of the womb with my principles already in there, and I just like figure them out. Like I just discover what I know I want already, and what I know I stand for, and what like the rules of my life are. But not like the rules of my life, because that sounds very constrained. But like what I want to live for. Like I just discover my priorities in different situations. I just discover what they already were.
Yep.
For a few years, I tried to have the principle of not holding on to any beliefs, and that was a bad idea. But other than that, it's always seemed to me that like principles are something that can change, but like I hold like temporary ones. It's like a thought experiment, I guess, for me. But I feel like I definitely must have principles, but I can't like articulate them very well. But I don't feel like I kind of like was born with them in any way. Like I definitely feel like they were developed personally.
Yeah. Like I said, I feel like the opposite. Like I've talked about, like the analogy I've done with Ken before is, there's all the, whatever. There's the things that I think are values, and I thought they were there, and then the more that I poke at them, I realize they were just like cardboard cutouts, and so I actually have less as time goes along. You realize you're like, oh, that wasn't real, was it?
Anyone see that Kant quote?
I did.
That'd be an example of a TI principle, I think.
Yeah, but like my TI would never allow me to say this should be a universal law. So,
right, but it's not an.
Like-
Well, I guess my principles are definitely negative principles, mostly. Like my number one is basically not kind of a, to describe it, like I label it the idea of freedom or liberty, but it's really kind of the idea of non-imposition.
Yeah, the non-aggression principle.
Well, it's a non-imposition. It says it's basically if imposition in general is the non-imposition is the best like default position, and any imposition must be justified by someone else's imposition. Does that make sense?
Yeah, are you familiar with anarchist theory at all?
Not specifically.
Well, what you're describing is the term for it is the non-aggression principle, the NAP, and that's essentially what it is.
Oh, the NAP.
It's as long as you don't hurt anybody, like you don't interfere with their ability to provide for themselves and their business and their land and all that good stuff, then you can do whatever the fuck you want to do.
Yeah, something along those lines. But that's kind of an external. That's my general external relational principle. It's like, okay, so when you ask me about a proposed law or something, I'm always going to take it back to, is this a justified imposition?
Oh yeah, I mean,
usually it's not.
Laws are serious business, and people usually don't take them very seriously for some reason because they
I
don't.
take it very seriously. I'm like, it's all right. You're proposing a rule, therefore you're proposing an imposition on lots of people generally. So it's like, all right, is your
Yeah, they
imposition
don't
justified? It's not.
think it through to the end where you realize that you're proposing that if people break this, you're going to lock them in a cage.
Yeah, but it's beyond my personal opinion. It'd be like, all right, on a personal level, on an interpersonal level, you can be a bit more subjective because that's how people work. But on a general level, you can't be, or you shouldn't be, in my opinion. Be like, I don't like whatever. What do I not like? If there's something that I don't like people doing, that does not justify a universal imposition against that. Only I can choose to, to lose some of my autonomy by trying to impose against it personally, but not on a general level. And then there's like, chosen ones like general value things like, okay, this set of people, they're more important because they're my important people. But yeah, I try to have some take it back to. Weirds people out because I come out on different sides of a lot of different like political things.
Oh, you don't say.
Yeah.
I remember. Anarchy is it's a ideology. It's a political ideology system. And,
No, anarchy is not an ideology either. I just put the definition right there.
right. That's why I changed it.
Yeah.
Which, see, that doesn't make any sense to me because it implies in that definition that without a government, there will be disorder, period. There's no other way, which I don't agree with.
Well, so things, organizational
No.
structure develop.
It doesn't even say government. It says authority.
Right, but it's implying that anarchy is inherently chaos and disorder.
Well,
No,
no, that's the difference between the definition of anarchy and the definition of chaos. Anarchy is directly related to the absence of authority, whereas chaos is not.
What? What? What?
And then it comes down to like people willingly and knowingly giving away authority over them. And then I'm fine with. If you choose to have a freedom taken away or assign it to someone else, that's perfectly fine. But removing that freedom without consent is bad.
Well, right. Ideally, yeah.
But
everyone should agree.
I prefer more people, the smaller organizational structures.
But anything can be a principle. Well, many things can be a principle. Principles are things to look for.
Keep in mind that we're in a room of NTs who are gonna like nail you on definitions and exact words.
All right, give me the definition of a principle.
Oh, I'm not giving you shit. I'm just saying, be careful because somebody will probably use your words carefully.
People can have more specific, less definable principles or less supported. I'm fine with that if you decide to do that. But I personally can't. I have a hard time with floating ones because I argue with myself. So I've got to have a really basic ones, really as universally applicable as possible. Remove as much context as possible.
Thank you, dictionary. Oh, your dictionary.
So, if there is a state of disorder due to absence or non-recognition of authority in a particular place, then that is a fundamental truth. That could be the foundation for a system of belief. There you go.
Do what?
It could be a principle.
I mean,
Just mesh the two.
a state of disorder is not itself a truth. You could say it's true that there is a state of disorder, but it's not actually a truth that you could use as a foundation for anything.
Yeah, you
But
can't
it
weigh
could
things
be a proposition. You could.
But this conversation is dildos. I do have to agree.
There's a principle for you.
Just say. Okay.
doesn't like any conversation that doesn't have to do with like My Chemical Romance or eyeliner.
Right?
Right? I fucking hate My Chemical Romance. Shut up.
They're not that bad. I'm actually gonna like them.
When I was
My father took me to the city.
I think the other thing about principles is that, talking about like higher level, like more defined principles, more contextualized, is that they imply deeper principles. And what I find a lot of people do is they have these less universalized statements or propositions that they like act on, but a lot of times their set contradicts them on a lower level. And I guess that's what I try to avoid, is I try to avoid contradictions on a higher level. Or if there is a contradiction, at least an awareness of it, an acceptance. I'm contradicting this principle because of something or whatever. Which does lower its priority generally. Or it's I'm saying, all right, I'm being bad or whatever. If that makes any sense. Anything can be a principle, but
Each other.
the higher level ones they're more easily, you can collect a set that contradict themselves.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
And that's honestly what I find I run into most. That's a lot of conflict arises out of that.
I also say the more specific a principle gets, the more self-contradictory it becomes.
Well, they're often not self-contradictory. They're often contradictory within the same person. So it's like I have this specific principle, or whatever they want to call it. I have this specific opinion,
Right.
and I have this specific opinion. And then if you trace those back, because most specific opinions can be traced back to some sort of more universal, general thing, and you'll find that they trace back to contradictory sides of a general universal thing.
Yeah, and it's the whole dialectic thing. There's always two sides to like any, I guess, principle or group of principles you decide to focus on.
Right. And there's contradictory ones. There are irreconcilable, choices of principle.
Like pineapple and pizza.
Dude, I had a friend who used to put peanut butter on his pizza. Try that.
Did you kill him?
Peanut butter does sound nasty. That sounds...
Did you kill him?
Yeah.
I'll try that.
Good.
I wanted to sometimes. He wasn't my friend for very
Didn't?
long.
You have failed God.
No, he ended up quitting being a loser and joining the football team, and then became a total normal person.
I like quitting being a loser.
Yeah.
He wasn't committed.
Yeah. But I have that problem with myself. Like, I'll often be like, oh shit, I totally know that I'm right about this one thing. Oh, wait a second. I could be wrong.
Exactly.
Right, you gotta stop that thought in its tracks. Stop at I'm right. That's the way to do it.
It's just that so many times we just see other people all the time. Like we poke holes in ourselves just as much as we poke holes in other people. And so it's this constant. It's this
troubleshoot.
Like
all we can do is find the flaws in things.
Yeah,
it's really
even
hard
when we're holding like a principle like dear to us. Like for example, like I have this principle that the way ACS, like I have principles about like education and other things about the way they should be done as opposed to the way things currently are, right? But it's always like in my mind, it's like I could be completely wrong about this, and I think about the trajectories and circumstances that would shift my opinion. Like I try and anticipate them also, and then it's just always second guessing in a variety of different ways, I guess.
Like not being wrong basically becomes more important than being right.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly how you prove
Yeah,
meaning
one way to make it
negatively. You can't prove meaning positively, except with like a huge amount of faith and belief.
Right.
So of course it's, you poke holes in everyone else's things, like, and then you're in fucking NTP.
Like that.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I'm...
We're like the leprechauns of the.
That's the noise we make when we poke holes.
That's why we're wearing green shirts, obviously.
Yeah. Jacket's just like the meme of.
They're after me, part of theory.
conversation. Just like anytime green gets mentioned, he'll just like turn on the video and then turn it off.
And turn
Well,
it
I think
off.
there's the idea that there's so many things that really aren't...
And turn it off.
Yeah, if you act on your theories,
Right,
then yeah,
there's only a consistent answer.
it would be an experiment. And experiments can sometimes go horribly wrong, like communism.
Right, or my experiment, like trying to take on ACS and then getting in a big fight and having a bunch of problems. Right, that was an experiment. That's and it's in progress.
There you go, man.
It's
Good
like
way to think about it.
you have to like I've started to. I have this tendency to like when things go wrong when I've been planning it out and kind of be defeatist, and it's like, oh man, this whole thing, all the principles I had about this thing are wrong just after like one failure. But as I've matured a little bit, it's kind of like each one of those is like a learning opportunity, and you also have to be careful not to be too quick to dismantle a principle too. You know, just because you know there's all these other circumstances that might have affected it that didn't.
Right, that's why you got to try to isolate the variables, man.
Yeah. I mean, but when you're dealing with something like, you know, group interactions, like societal, like it's really hard, you know. But you're right. Like that's definitely what I try to do.
That's why social sciences are really wishy-washy, basically, because
they don't
really
have that
hard.
level of rigor. You know, they're relatively new sciences in this way, and they're dealing with systems that are so complicated that you almost need to be like mystical about it in order to like talk about
Right. Well, the problem is, they're so unstable that it's almost impossible to repeat the results of a social science experiment with
People are
any
so
significant
fucking
consistency.
Because
Like-
because any two circumstances, there's so many variables that have changed in between
Yeah.
that you can't control for in like a person, for example, or a group of people, especially. You know,
Yeah, it's nuts.
which means that perhaps empirical science, you know, and like statistics and stuff like might not be the best way to deal with all of that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's just kind of my inclination that I see now. But like I'm not really in depth like in the field or anything, or like talking to many people on campus that are on.
You can what, Phoebe? Don't. You don't need to hide.
I'm not hiding. I'm playing the ukulele.
Oh.
You can control experiments, and repeat them. That's why it's called science. But
Well, it's called science, but I guess my argument is it's hardly science.
that's why
It's
they
more
have.
like the correspondence of the variation in like what you're measuring is always going to be really wide in social sciences, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
Basically, you can come up with basically a rate at which certain social science experiments can be repeatable. Like you can say that these results are like 53% repeatable, for example.
Yeah. It always ends up being a probability situation.
So like half the time you'll get the same result, but the other half you won't. And unfortunately, that rate is usually very, very low in the social sciences, which is really the only beef I have with them.
Well, if you can repeat an experiment and your
Gas,
rate
green,
that's
slag.
at the flip of a coin, then that's not a very good experiment.
Well, a lot of them
So-
aren't very good.
Wouldn't be published in any field.
yeah, you're right
If it
about
was published, then it would probably get a lot of shit later on.
Yeah.
Even
Like
in the social
flat Earth
sciences,
theory.
there is some discretion for that. And you get your experiments that are highly controlled and highly repeatable, that are published and are looked upon as solid evidence for the hypotheses.
Yeah.
So- There's a lot of good science that goes into it, and good math that goes into it, and good solid framework, like good thinking. There are lots of good thinkers in the social sciences. It's not just
No,
like
I never say that
not do
everyone
this.
involved in the social sciences is not a real scientist and is an idiot and doesn't know what they're doing. I guess really my problem is perception of the results. Like, basically, there are a lot of social science experiments that aren't very rigorously controlled, and the statistics are basically released into the wild, and in the current political climate, people see these statistics and go, oh my god, that's totally true. And it's just a total shit show.
Well, I see what you're saying.
It's a completely different
Uh,
issue that you're bringing
right.
up. That's completely different from repeatability. And
But,
that is a problem that you have in social sciences, where you have like popular science books, and you have authors who are like researchers who are trying to make a buck and who are writing for like the general public, and they make it accessible, and they don't necessarily back up their information, and people get really into it. And then even those anthologies of research get poorly quoted and construed in like articles about them. So that is an issue.
Actually, I see that all through
like,
the science.
Saying that science is fake.
I have the same problem with psychology too, to be perfectly honest, and I don't actually see this problem as much in any other fields outside of like the soft sciences, quote unquote.
Well, the soft sciences are really easy to have an opinion about because they're so accessible. For example, us talking about the MBTI, we're not talking about like physics. We're talking about social sciences.
Hey, guys, you're three people talking at the same time. We can't hear anyone.
Oh, sorry, my video might be paused, or it might be glitching.
No, you were talking and Phoebe and Spacey at the same time, and we couldn't hear any one of you.
Sorry, I think my video is glitching. I'm gonna refresh.
Oh yeah, you probably couldn't hear her. Are you still on Firefox?
I was not articulating myself well, and the repeatability thing is a separate issue entirely. But Zach did articulate what I was trying to say better.
So it's more about like the public discourse and the way they relate to the science, more so than the actual science itself, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that kind of makes sense to me. I feel that definitely, and people put a lot of weight on like statistical truth too, that I have issue with, or like interpretations of statistics, or like confidence intervals, like that kind of thing. I don't know.
It's just, yeah, a lot of it just doesn't seem to be like empirically proven at all, and it's almost impossible to do so.
It's not going to be, you're not going to have this nice formal logic system for most of things, probably. But I think people are definitely trying to make that happen. I'm just not very well read on it.
They're trying. It
have
seems like it's kind of...
You have the scientists in the fields, too, in the social science fields, getting frustrated by the science being misconstrued and kind of just fapped around by the public.
Right, so they're actually upset that people are kind of taking it as gospel, more or less.
Right, yeah, and not being concerned with the nuances or the fact that, like, certain studies get totally just, like, taken out of context and...
Well, it ends up being the source of a lot of, like, confirmation bias by people who are looking for evidence that they're what they believe is true, yeah.
So the scientists in the social sciences get really frustrated by that too, because they're really interested in what's actually true and what's not. So
right, like I'm sure they're conducting the studies perfectly fine, but what happens with the results is I guess what I have an issue with.
Or if like a layman. I say layman, but just like someone that's not college educated or whatever, or just generally is just reading about it, and they, might put the same that like
scorcher
thing that is like much more specific scenario, like some generalization about some basic like physics principle, and which is like a totally different thing. It's like so much more base level stuff, and people associate like the same like confidence interval that people have when really they're like way different confidence intervals, but people assume that they're the same in terms of like the results and all of that also.
But if you read like research done by social scientists, like you have the same statistics and evidence. It's structured in similar ways to like hard sciences.
Well, I imagine it's a little bit more like chemistry, where there's so many interactions, like so many particles and stuff, that you do this like statistical thing where you like track the rate of reaction. And then
I'm out. Going to work.
Oh, see ya.
Bye.
And kind of like you do try and like piece it together, but like chemistry is kind of like softer in that way also, because there's just so many interactions that you couldn't possibly model all of it. It would be computational.
But what I'm saying is that you can look for clues and signs that this science is good, and that the experiment was honestly done and repeatable and like had good foundations, or if it was kind of shoddy and like done more because like this person was interested in confirming his hypothesis, and like you have very similar clues that you would look for as if you read a hard science paper.
Yeah, I would imagine it's similar, because that happens also in the hard science, like you're saying, and so one of the big giveaways is if someone's writing like a physics paper on like a subject or something, if they use like too much like esoteric language and it's like way too obtuse and like verbose and kind of like that, it's usually like someone trying to cover up for the fact that like it was kind of just like I was pressured to publish, and they kind of just like threw it all together and made sure that they used terms that no one else would be able to like call them out on, and like one of the that kind of a thing. And it's like and you can tell like the rest of the study is like really sloppy, and everything else was kind of put together as just like we need to produce a study rather than we want to get to the core of this truth. And it's like and you can kind of pick up on all those signs after you're like literate in the field and tell. So I would imagine
it's like if I'm vague enough, then I'm not lying.
Or so specific that no one can like check, right?
Yeah, I guess the real thing is no one actually gives a shit about. No one's reading hard science research papers, but
yes, so much
are.
Yeah,
but people are commenting on the results of soft science research and actually using these results as arguments for why they're right. Like.
Yeah, and the only reason people are commenting or using hard science papers is so that they can do like really important shit, like commercial things, like building commercial pipelines, or like doing biotechnology cool stuff for like medicine or whatever. So like that stuff is being used in like really high stakes situations. But the soft sciences are used in low stakes and high stakes situations, like in medicine and therapy, but also in
even like
just
geopolitics, right?
Social situations.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
But it gets a lot of shit, so I like to speak up for it, because even in college, like people like to shit on it, but there were so many people who were really fastidious, and that was one of the reasons why I couldn't get a master's in it or a PhD, because I'm not that fastidious about like my research techniques and my interests. So I really like to speak up for the people who are in the fields doing good work.
Well, listen, I'm glad you spoke up, because as insistent I can seem on being right, it's actually pretty fun to be proven wrong. Because it's like now I can just cut that part right out of my brain and make more room for other things that aren't bullshit. That's why I start like bearing down on the definitions and shit, because I'm like, you really got to prove me wrong on this. But once you do, it's pretty awesome.
It's very
like
INTP. You'll be having this like really fierce discussion, and you're like so intense about it, and then like at the end of it, you're like, oh, okay, I can agree with that.
That's really that's like the acting part of it. It's like I'm just gonna believe this as hard as I can until this belief gets destroyed. Like sometimes I'll even pretend to believe things that I really don't believe at all.
It's like
Just-
I do devil's advocate stuff all the time, and like
Exactly.
friend groups that I've had, like sometimes it gets to a point where they're just like, "Fucking shut up!" Like we don't care. Like they catch on that I'm like always being contrary, and it becomes a problem because then I actually take issue with something, and they're like, "Fuck off," you know, like.
Yeah. Well, it's like a good debater can convince somebody that something they don't even believe is true. That's what I always like to say. Like, it's like, I don't believe this point, but I can actually argue it well enough that you will believe it by the time that I'm done.
Hey!
Calm the fuck down, bro. How's your day going?
Going good. It's going great.
Awesome.
Going great. It's going good. How are you?
I'm all right. Gonna watch some fucking UFC tonight.
Fucking UFC. They should just change the name to that. I promise.
Yeah. Well, sometimes when they get on the ground and start humping each other, it basically turns into fucking UFC. But
Are you quick with it tonight, Spacey? Are you feeling it tonight? I don't even hear you playing games. You're like fully devoted.
yeah, I just ate a pot cookie, and I'm just like
Hell, man.
chilling with people, and I'm gonna go watch the fights in like an hour.
You are sharp tonight.
I'm a fucking shark tonight.
You're a shark and you're sharp.
Blood in the water.
Yeah.
No, Kato said something similar to me yesterday. He's like, "Yo, dude."
I'm at my parents' house, so I'm always good when I'm here. It's like,
Yeah, Audrey's hair is sick.
fuck yeah.
She just got a crazy blow dry too.
She got a blowjob. Hey,
It's in
Neptune,
my face.
go check that shit out that I tagged you in, nigga.
Do what? Are you talking to me? I'm here, so I'm assuming people.
Oh,
are
see,
wearing-
hey, oh my god, hey, oh my god, hey,
Okay then.
Where'd she go anyway?
Look at this cute little dog.
There we go.
That's Daisy. Daisy,
Oh,
Daisy.
fucking love dogs.
She's an awesome dog. She's very nice. This is my parents' house. If y'all have never seen it, it's crazy. My mom just went ham on this place. That's my shirt for tonight. I'm gonna return it maybe. I told myself I traveled with no clothes. I was like, I'll figure it out. I'll fucking figure it out when I get there. Tour de mi home. Like the little.
You guys have a laser tape measure? These are the coolest new things. It's so convenient that I have to show it off.
This one's upside down.
INFP Phoebe out there. I met you. Hello.
Have we met? Hi.
Man, my arm looks big right Daisy, what you trying to do, girl? Daisy! Come on, girl.
That's a cute dog.
He's fatty. He's mean, too.
Oh, I love that.
Come here, Bo. No, you come to me. I'm not coming to you. Come here. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Can you just open the fucking door?
Whoa, 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 whoa. Look at him. He's just like, come pet me. Come pet me.
Ah. I'm playing a war game with super dark glasses. Probably the best idea I've ever had.
Your audio's not.
Ah, shit.
You lazy bastard.
A budding young ENTP.
Do what?
Kick-Ass's brother.
Do you think he's an ENTP?
Yes.
I do too. Nappy Nap, are you here? Nap. Kelly sent me a message.
Nepelodian. Who's Kelly? Probably some chick.
Have you guys heard of the game Snake Pass?
No.
It's a 3D platforming game where you control a snake. But the thing is that the snake, it's a physics-based puzzle platforming game. So like everything is like physically computed. So like the snake.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it actually moves like a real snake and stuff like that.
Have you ever played Octodad?
I've seen it, but I have not played it.
It's incredibly hard to play. Because it's actual octopus physics.
Yeah.
You know.
This game is actually like really polished and really good. It's like it looks like a rare like the old rare games and stuff, and it's like it's a real nice game. It's fun. It's pretty short though, but it's like $20.
All right, I might check it out, but maybe if it's on like a Steam sale.
Yeah. It was just like because it kind of went under the radar, like because it came out like a little bit before Yooka-Laylee, but like people are ending up like liking it a little bit better than that game, but only if they're like experienced gamers, because the controls, people like it's not just like where you can pick it up. You have to like learn an entirely new way. You have to like learn how to think like a snake, as they say. And so like a lot of people don't have they want to be able to like pick it up and just like play, because they know
Right.
the controls of a platformer, but it's like totally different, right? Instead of a jump, you have like this head button, right? And you like you have like a lengthened body.
So what, you just have to basically lift all of the snake ligaments in succession in order to do a jump? Like starting with the head, I guess?
No. You just control the head and then contracting or elongating the body. And you also have a bird, like a hummingbird that follows around you, and you can choose a button where he'll come lift up your tail. So like yeah. So like in case it's gonna like fall off like an edge or something, and like the gravity is gonna like pull you down, or if you want to have like less contact points and stuff like that. But it was really cool because like playing the game, like if you understand like how the snake is like physically rendered, you can find like new paths through the levels and stuff, like taking advantage of the physics in the game. because it's all like physically rendered. There's like all these kind of things like the developers like didn't anticipate. So it's like a really good speed running game and stuff like that, because there's like all these shortcuts and stuff for people to figure out how to like abuse the physics.
I would appreciate a developer that's willing to actually make a game like that, where like either not a lot of people are going to buy it, or the people that do buy it have a ton of difficulty actually playing it.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like a Dark Souls of platformers in terms of difficulty.
right.
It's like
Holy shit. Dark Souls, that was a game where like my friends had all played it, and it took me fucking forever, but then I finally just got it on Steam because it was like super cheap, and I started playing it, and I was like, all right guys, I'm on that one boss where there's like 3 giant statues with pole axes or whatever, and they're like, oh shit, that fight's pretty hard. And then like half an hour later, on like my 6th or 7th try, I'm just like, I did it. And they're like, what the fuck, that took me like 5 hours. And then I got really bored of it, because every boss fight was the same thing. You just bash your head against the wall until you figure out how to finally win and get like a little lucky because you didn't screw up that time.
Actually, now that I mention it, I haven't played all the way through Dark Souls, but I own it. I have played the original Demon Souls, though, and that game was pretty... I don't know, it's interesting to have a game that's like where you have to track memorize like all the attack patterns and stuff. But it's not something I necessarily like get off doing. Like, I much prefer games that have like lots of like system like development. Like, for example, like an RPG like Path of Exile with its like skill tree that has like so many different choices.
Yes, I actually got pretty into that game for a while, but...
Ooh, have you seen the expansion that's coming out, Fall of Orith?
No.
What they're doing is they're adding 5 like new acts, I think. Like, they're adding...
Dude, will you play Path of Exile with me? We should fucking do that.
Yes, but once Fall of Orith comes out, because I kind of... It's like what they're doing is they're getting rid of the thing where you repeat the acts. So basically what it's going to be is that there's going to be 10 total acts, and every single one of them is going to be different. It is the case that you're revisiting old areas, but your actions from the previous time you were there has changed the landscape, the types of monsters, and like everything else. So you should look up the trailer on their website for the Fall of Orith. Like, it's gonna
be I did get pretty burned out on it. Like, playing myself, at least, I never actually got all the way through the game because I just got bored.
Well, I have to tell you, like, I did play quite a bit of it, and your first few characters are like, you just have to be willing to like sacrifice them. It's like they're like your learning characters, right? Because there's no like real easy way to respec or anything. So I started planning things out in like a build planner outside of the game, with like an app.
I always do that. I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with this fucker? Yeah. And sometimes though, like, what did I try to do? I tried to make like a witch who used fist weapons, and I had it so that every time I hit people with my fist weapons, it would charge my shields. So I had like really low health and high shields.
Instead of life steal,
yeah. And then instead of life steal, I had like shield. But then like once I got to a point where I was actually getting like my key talents, I realized that it didn't work exactly the way I thought it was going to work, and
it's the skill descriptions in that game are perfectly like literal. They're exact. Like, it's like once you realize like all the skill descriptions are like you have to interpret them literally as stated, then it starts to make a little bit more sense. Like, but you will make a ton of mistakes because you like assume how percentages and stuff works from like other games, and then you're like, oh crap, that doesn't work, But,
yeah, like, I don't know, I just misinterpreted the wording or something. I was like, fuck, now I'm just gonna die.
Yeah, I kind of, for a while I only played softcore characters, and then I started playing in the hardcore league, and man, that stuff, like, you start having like heart palpitations, it's like like
no, but hardcore characters, dude, I hate it because there's so much RNG in that game that you can
they've tried
you can walk into a certain area and just be dead before you even realize what happened, like
or like the life or like physical reflect. So if you like once you get to like the highest difficulty of the game, you start to encounter like physical reflect monsters and stuff.
Oh, they have all kinds of fucking enchantments.
And so
on them.
you can accidentally just like kill yourself from off screen if you have like a physical attack off screen and you hit one of those guys. You just like kill yourself.
Yeah, it's just like it's like shit.
So that's why you always go totem. If you make a totem build, you can't be hit by reflect damage. So it's like certain builds have like advantages. So you have to like manage the probabilities of where you think you're most likely to die and pick a build that like minimizes those risks, but it comes with its own risks, right? So
right.
So whatever risks you absorb, you have to kind of be like hyper aware about those
Well,
risks.
that's the thing. If you want to make it through hardcore without dying, there's very few builds that you can actually get away with using. That's usually what ends up being the case.
I disagree, but there's very few that you can like start off a league with, right? Once you have a hardcore character that has like collected uniques and they're like sitting in your stash, then there's like all kinds of crazy shit.
Right.
But
like
off on like a new character, there's like usually like a limited amount of builds per league.
Yeah, like you've got to be at least somewhat cautious. You can't just be like, I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want. Like
you build yourself like really, really, really tanky and make sure that you can like survive, you know, almost any attack. Like you don't want to be able to be one shot by anything, you know, that kind of stuff.
But I do always like the concept of mage tanking though, so I was kind of happy when I saw that like they had the whole shield mechanic.
Yeah. I did this, so I made this really stupid build once. Like, it's super fun, though. So, you know the skill, there's a skill called Lightning Warp, which allows you to, like, teleport to a position. And then there's attack or spell totem. So I linked, so I basically would summon totems, and I got this, like, perk that allowed me to have multiple totems, but, like, not use any actual attacks myself. And so I had these totems that would teleport and, like, and hit enemies, and they would like teleport and like chase down the enemies with like lightning warps. So they had these like teleporting totems.
Shit.
Yeah. So like crazy shit like that can work, you know. And then I was like super safe. And then since I couldn't use any physical attacks, I started using traps and mines to augment the damage. So I like linked like you know, I spec'd into like lightning damage and lightning penetration and shock and like that kind of stuff. And then everyone just got, you know, shocked, and then they would get DPS down, you know. It was fun.
It's definitely the game that the true Diablo 2 lovers were always waiting for.
You know, I actually never played Diablo 2.
It was kind of before my time, honestly, but I remember my older brother used to play it all the time. And he was at like maximum level, so he kept running that one dungeon that's just full of cows. It's like a joke dungeon, but it's incredibly hard, and it's just full of like these mad cow enemies that just do a shitload of damage and it's whatever, but they drop like really good loot. I don't know, but
have you ever done a race in Path of Exile? They have like daily races now. It's pretty interesting. Like
no,
so
I haven't played it in ages.
Yeah, it's a fun game, but it takes a lot of your time when you get invested into it. So it's like one of those things that. You're probably right. You don't want to play with like other people because it absorbs. As far as me like planning out the build and stuff, like it kind of absorbs all my time.
Yeah.
No one else has anything to say. I'm just like, we'll let these guys nerd out over here.
Yeah, I get the feeling people don't like us.
Why do you get that feeling?
See, nobody wants to talk about anything cool. Yeah, see, yeah, people want to be normies now. They want to have fun. They can talk about like television and movies and clothes and stuff. But I guess video games are boring too.
Everything's boring, I guess.
Everything's boring to somebody. All right, I'm going to jump in there for a little while, I guess.